It's time now for Back Pages tonight on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and The Independent's Miguel Delaney. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages. Well, we'll start with The Sun. My special feeling for City. And Martin VAR dig, that's the Southampton boss, questioning the referees and the VARs. And Sir Jim's summer backlash. Bit of Manchester United down the sidebar in The Sun. We'll get to that. I cannot leave now is the headline in The Guardian. The theme is Guardiola across all of the papers. Guardiola says City's recent slump sparked his 2-year contract. There's F1 story there as well. Furious drivers hit out at Formula One's leadership over radio silence. In the Telegraph, City's rivals eye victory in key votes. We will get onto that. Big vote coming up in the morning. Now, the Eye also going big on Guardiola. 2 more years. It's a block party song. City confirmed Guardiola deal. Jofra Archer is back page news in the Eye as well. Apparent IPL Uturn. Looks like a problem for England when you consider his injury history. And the Times is focusing on Pep. I'm staying until 2027. There's also Reece James of Chelsea hit by another injury, and Newcastle have a forward on top of their January shopping list. Quite like the headline in the Express, Stars and Swipes. This is Gary Neville having a bit of a pop at Marcus Rashford and Casemiro for their flights to the USA in the international break. There's support for Rodrigo Bentancur from Tottenham as well, defended by the club after being banned for 7 games. And Pep's wishes come true. Of course, Pep Guardiola is a key focus in that newspaper as well. And the Star also touching on the Marcus Rashford story, plain daft. And they will also focus on the Tottenham Rodrigo Bentancur story, In Rod We Trust. And if we have a quick look at the Metro, I think they went to the printers a little early. No sign of the Pep Guardiola story, but Gary slams, rash calls. Again, Neville hitting out at Marcus Rashford. But we are going to start with the big story that reached us about 8 o'clock in the evening. Pep Guardiola signing on for another 2 years. The Sun headline, my special feeling for City. Jonathan, we've known about this for a couple of days. Tuesday, it was first reported that he'd agreed the contract. It's now signed. What's your immediate reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's great news for City. I think a big relief for City fans. It's bad news for City's rivals. And I think we have to take the justification with a slight pinch of salt. I mean, I think Guardiola's saying that he can't leave now. They've lost 4 in a row. I genuinely don't believe that Pep Guardiola, the greatest manager of our generation, has made a decision on his future based on losing to Tottenham in the Carabao Cup. I think it's probably slightly more prosaic than that. I think that there is a temptation to assume that everything Guardiola does is a kind of mind game because he's so cerebral. What he does on the pitch. The way he thinks about the game. There is a temptation to think that there must be some kind of ulterior motive or some sort of hidden agenda to everything he does. But I think for most of us who have to make any kind of decision about our career, it is very often a gut feel. It's a gut feel decision. And he at Manchester City has a club where he clearly has a lot of affection. He has held in a great deal of affection. He has a structure that is built around him. He's very familiar with the people there. He gets on with the people there. And I think this might well just be a case of man likes job and wants to continue doing it. There may well be hidden levels to that. But I think sometimes the simplest explanation is often the best.
Yeah, I like the headline. Maybe we could have that on your paper, The Guardian. They also focus on the Guardiola says City slump spark new 2-year contract. I completely agree with you, Jonathan. It's unlikely he would knee-jerk it like that. But, Miguel, the timing may well have something to do with when they release the news to cheer people up.
Yeah, I think that's potentially more relevant. And I mean, look, City is a club where one of Ferran Soriano, the chief executive's dictums is you never make a decision in the 24 hours after a game. Yeah, they talk about putting your head in the freezer. So from that perspective, I just can't see someone like Guardiola in that system making decisions based on this. I think it is further reaching. As you say, it's not a surprise because It was first reported 2 days ago. There's been noise about it since July, really. But maybe the 2 years is a slight surprise, given there is so much uncertainty around the club for all sorts of factors, from what's happening in the pitch of late to, of course, the hearing where City insist on their innocence. But this is one element where Guardiola has, in a very direct way, also helped this club, whatever about the future, even in this immediate short term, as you referenced in those recent results. Well, suddenly it offers a sense of clarity and certainty, where for the past few weeks, I think it's kind of known at this point that Guardiola's own future was being discussed in the dressing room, and it's impossible not to think that influenced results on the pitch in some way. So now suddenly those players can look at a manager who has committed his medium-term future to the club, and immediately there'll be that sense of focus again. And it's why now suddenly the performance against Tottenham at the weekend is going to be one of the most interesting in the Premier League, given what's happened in the last few weeks with City, and now given this news. Maybe it's going to be like, say, when we could go on as far back now to 2002, when the Manchester United squad thought that Alex Ferguson was going to retire. He instead did a U-turn, and there was almost an immediate uptick in results. This could potentially have a similar psychological effect.
Yeah, like the Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving. Pep says he's staying until 2027. That's the headline in the Times, Jonathan. I think when it was first reported earlier this week, we all assumed they'll get an extra year out of him, maybe with an option. But the 2 years looks hard and fast.
Yeah, we got Scorsese and Block Party in the first 10 minutes. This is a pop culture bonanza from you. Yeah, I was listening. Yeah, I think if you'd said to City fans when Guardiola joined in 2016, that he would be there for over a decade, I think they would have been utterly astounded. I think most of us would have been, given how quickly he burnt out at Barcelona, given how the short period of time he spent at Bayern Munich. I think if you said to City fans, you'll get 3 years out of Guardiola and then he'll move on to pastures new, I think they'd probably have said, fine, all right, we're just very grateful he's here in the first place. The fact that he has decided, so this will take him to 11 years, right, to 2027, potentially, more extensions, and that kind of brings Guardiola's reign at City into the Wenger Ferguson territory. He's obviously not going to get to 27 years. I don't think that's a realistic target, but it does feel dynastic in the sense that he has had to build a new team, break it up, build a new team, break it up, and very potentially build another new team on top of that. And we can assume, I think, given City's resources, given Guardiola's genius, given the players at his disposal, that they are going to keep winning in some way, shape, or form. So I think that very much it kind of defines Guardiola's legacy in a way that maybe moving on at this point might have left in a slightly open-ended way. I think he's 53 now. He's still at the peak of his powers. There was a chance, I think, at this point of his career to go and do something completely new and build a new project. I think that's kind of off the table now. I think he has basically baked himself in and to City for, until he'll be 56, I think, by the time he leaves, or by the time he takes on a new job, which realistically speaking isn't really enough time to secure a new, different kind of legacy from the one he's building at City. So I think it's kind of defined him. It's put him in the sort of the Ferguson Wenger bracket of managers who are going to be indelibly associated with a single club.
Yeah, the Express go with Pep's wishes come true. He says he has everything he could wish for in a football club at Manchester City. He's won everything he could have wished for at Manchester City and beyond. What's motivating him, Miguel?
We know that Guardiola is someone that loves clean numbers and records. I would have thought, or I think this is very obvious, he was disappointed not to retain the Champions League this season. It's long been his dream to do the kind of the 3 in a row in the Champions League, because that's historically been seen as the gold standard in that competition. But I suppose there's another aspect for someone who is a football mind like Guardiola, and Jonathan touched upon this when you compare it to, say, like why he didn't stay at Barcelona that long, why he didn't stay at Bayern Munich that long. But City, because of the ownership, they are a very distinctive club in that way. And they have such resources that they've allowed the situation where a manager like Guardiola doesn't really have to concern himself with anything else bar coaching. He's basically been given the perfect club or the perfect football setup in a way that's almost impossible at all but maybe about 5 or 6 clubs in the world. That has fostered this, as he's talked about himself, this love for the club, this love for the job. And I think that's a large part of why he stayed and why he was always, why he has been at City so long in the first place, in contrast to, say, the storm he always had at Barcelona and maybe the different context in Bayern Munich.
Yeah, Miguel touched earlier on things that are going on away from the pitch. There's two things, but we'll focus firstly on the 115 charges that Manchester City are facing for breaching financial rules. They strenuously deny any wrongdoing, Jonathan. But if this was to go against Manchester City, I mean, could we really see Pep Guardiola managing them in a division below if that were a punishment that were to fall upon them?
Yeah, City have been, pretty clear about the fact that there isn't a break clause in this new contract, that there isn't sort of a relegation release clause, that that he will be at the club for the next 2 years, come hell or relegation or vindication. And that obviously is a statement is an assertion of confidence in the verdict in itself. But all these people that say, well, Guardiola, he's great when he's got great players and resources at his disposal. Why doesn't he go down and manage Rotherham or Doncaster or take Bury out of the National League South or something? If this verdict goes against City, and I think this is still a very unlikely possibility, but if City get relegated or thrown out of the league, we may well be treated to the side of Guardiola trying to get City back into the Premier League, football manager style, auto save, simulate season, and we might get Guardiola finally giving one to the critics. He said he needs big resources and a top club to do his work.
Yeah, we've all won the Champions League with Margate, but that was a different time. So the Times also have the headline on a slightly different but also off-field issue, Miguel. City rivals eye victory in this vote that is happening on Friday. This is around the associated party transactions, the sponsorship deals for companies connected to the clubs that they sponsor.
Yeah, there's actually a dinner ongoing now, or it's probably finishing or coming to maybe the kind of chats afterwards before this vote tomorrow morning with the meeting starting in London at 9 a.m. that is seen as potentially a watershed in Premier League history, given it comes in the context of this hearing, in the context of this, what is almost seen as a civil war between City and a small group of clubs against maybe the wider Premier League. And it's about it's a vote that is about the response to their legal challenge to the initial changes to the APT rules. City have already attempted to block this with the backing from Aston Villa. The Premier League are pressing ahead. Now, the latest tonight is that there is a quiet confidence that that the Premier League has the 14 votes required to pass this. But I think it sums up the state of the Premier League at the moment. And I suppose the place of City in all this as well, given everything we're talking about, that no matter what happens, this could spell even more issues to the Premier League. If City manage to secure 7 votes to their side, which is still in the balance, then it's a veto. Then there'll be all sorts of talk about whether the Premier League is ungovernable. It creates grey areas. But also on the other side, and this is what City have been warning, if the Premier League does win this vote, and City have also specifically said, to be fair, that it's better to wait until the tribunal's findings are actually published so they have a clearer picture, which to me is actually a fair perspective. But if the Premier League does press ahead with the vote tomorrow and win, then they could face more litigation in future. And I suppose this sums up, this is also something that's weighed over the latter half of the Guardiola era at City. It's this constant off-pitch controversy that surrounded the club before you even get into, I suppose, bigger debates about the ownership and all that.
It's what we all love as football fans, isn't it? Litigation. Yeah. What we do like is the title race, and the Telegraph suggesting that the title race kicks back into life after the international break. Arsenal 9 points behind Liverpool. Manchester City are 5 points off the top. What does today's news about Pep Guardiola do for the title race, do you think, Jonathan?
I think it certainly clarifies, when Miguel talked about the state of uncertainty that's been hanging over City with these 115 charges, with the verdict due in January. And, I don't necessarily think that City's players are sort of poring over the newspapers and reading about associated party transactions and, what Lord Panic's been doing in London or whatever. But that mood of things not being quite secure, not sort of knowing maybe where your club's going to be in 12 months, where you're going to be in 12 months. That can seep through into a dressing room. And I think the fact that Guardiola has now committed himself to the club, that's an assertion of confidence, I think, in the future of the club and in the verdict itself. But also, it provides a kind of stability. And we know we've all seen what Guardiola's teams can do in the second half of the season. The way that they are primed to peak for that sort of Christmas and post-Christmas period. And Liverpool obviously quite clear at the top at the moment. Arsenal chasing them, and I think Arsenal will have improved their chasing. They will have improved their second half of the season, having learned from previous title races. I think it sets it up really nicely, actually, because Liverpool's lead, I don't think is necessarily secure. They might just be slight favourites, but I think City and Arsenal are going to go into the second half of the season with a real chance of toppling them.
Yep, a real belief, and you'll see it all on Sky. Right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, though, we'll look at more of the back pages, including this in the Metro. Gary slams, rash calls. This is about Marcus Rashford flying stateside in the international break. We'll chew that over next. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to Jonathan Liew and Miguel Delaney. Let's go to the Daily Express Sports. Stars and swipes. United pair slammed as unprofessional over trips to the USA. This is Marcus Rashford and Casemiro. Is it unprofessional, Jonathan, to go away in a break?
No, this is Gary Neville, right? He played. Yeah. I think it's like right back. He was right back for United under Ferguson, right? He played for quite a few years. Yeah, I'm sure the multiple Champions League winner Casemiro is really worried about a former right back commenting on his podcast about what he thinks of his holiday plans. I say this as someone who is kind of required to have an opinion about Manchester United most weeks. It is not legally required to have an opinion on every single thing that happens at Manchester United. I know Gary Neville is a great pundit, and I enjoy watching him. But these are professional athletes, right? And they're at a club with what you have to assume is an extensive medical department. That this stuff is cleared in advance. That they will have all the best kind of recovery. They'll have sleep consultants, and it's a holiday. I think there are lots of things that are worth being a little bit concerned about at Manchester United, particularly, the way things have gone over the last few years. And there are certain things that are kind of just noise. And I think this falls into the noise category. These are two guys who have gone on holiday during the international break. It's, let them go on holiday.
Yeah. What'd you make of it, Miguel?
I'd actually probably be more on Gary's side, I have to say. I mean, look, as Jonathan said, this is all, within the club's rules. They've been allowed to do it. But I suppose it is what it represents maybe in terms of something bigger. Mostly from the timing. And it's not just about being 14th in the league. It's actually that the new manager started last week. There's obviously it's changed the mood. Given that these are two players not selected for international duty, it could have made a difference for them to be around, especially given this manager is known as such a coach who has such a tactical ideal, for two senior players to be working within that. Of course, they didn't have to. But maybe it would have been better for them and for the team if they did do that. And I suppose that, they're entitled to do it, but equally, maybe there's a bigger picture here. And there is maybe that slight sense now of, just as at the start of a new era, the United are suddenly maybe dragged back a little bit to old headlines. And you do wonder how this thing will be looked upon in the future. Of course, actually, the real measure is how they perform in the next game. If Rashford scores, if Casemiro is as good as he's been this season, to be fair, then no one will remember this. Yeah,
quite. Ruben Amorim's first game against Ipswich away on Sunday. A lot of the newspapers focusing on the Rodrigo Bentancur story. Tottenham appealing against the length of his ban for a racist comment about Son Heung-min and, I suppose, Koreans in the wider round. In Rod We Trust is the Star Sport. I've chosen that one just because I like the headline. What do you make of the fact that they're appealing the ban? They're not saying he shouldn't be punished, but they feel the ban is a bit severe. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think the optics of it are really bad. I think the way that Spurs have handled this from the start is really bad. Basically tried to kind of contain it rather than address it head on. I think Ange Postecoglou's comments today were a little bit disappointing. He's a great bloke. He's a fantastic guy. Great bloke, defends great bloke. As we all know, sometimes great blokes do really bad things. And I get Bentancur's, contrition. I get his apology. I get the fact that Spurs want to contain this, and I think I get that Spurs are really peeved at losing a key player for 7 games who isn't injured. But there has to be, proper sanction for these things, because these are really damaging stereotypes that are perpetuated not just against Koreans, but all East Asian people. And unless we address them head on, unless we take this seriously, they're going to perpetuate. So I think Spurs have actually they kind of failed a lot of their fans on this one.
Let's focus on the Metro, the top left-hand corner of their back page. Unlucky Reece James suffers fresh fitness setback. He's only made 4 appearances all season. It's a hamstring injury, Miguel. The poor guy can't catch a break. Yeah,
I mean, it's at this point, you don't want to say it's become kind of a party around it, because this is actually quite a serious issue for someone's career. But it's just like, it's amazing how we just see these headlines time and time again. It's hard not to just feel sorry for him at this point. And I suppose for Maresca, who has to deal with the reality of it, it just begs the question of, does he have to start really planning his team without Reece James just because the player keeps getting these issues? And it's so unfortunate for someone that we would be talking about as one of the best right backs in the world, a leader for Chelsea. It's such a question that he can't show this on the pitch as often as he should be.
Yeah, real shame for Chelsea and for Reece James. They play Leicester this weekend. Back page of the iSport, Chris Stocks has written a slap in the face why Jofra Archer's apparent IPL Uturn is a problem for England, Jonathan. This will relate to his, again, like Reece James, his repeat injuries.
Yeah, I mean, the next IPL auction is a super auction, basically. So if you're an overseas player, you don't go into this auction, you're basically not allowed to go into the subsequent auctions. You're not allowed to essentially play in the IPL until 2027. Jofra Archer is 29 now. He's not the future of English cricket, as I think we all hoped he would be in 2019. He's obviously suffered a huge amount of injuries. He's been integrated back into the England team. But frankly, I don't think it's fair for England. They held him out of the auction last season. I don't think it's fair for them to hold back Archer from the IPL when there is no guarantee that he's going to be fit to play for England for the next few years, or that England are necessarily going to want to pick him. Obviously it's a huge optical issue if he gets an injury, and England have a huge international summer ahead with India and the Ashes. But he's also got his earning potential, his career to think about. And this is a huge opportunity for a player in a league where overseas fast bowlers have always attracted a big premium.
There will be some, I suppose, capital T traditionalists who are obsessed with the Test team that might say, does Jofra Archer not owe the England national team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he owes the England national team his very best when he's picked for England. I think England have invested a lot of him in terms of contracts, in terms of time. But, I don't think...
Jonathan, I'm going to have to apologise. I've opened you up and I'm being counted down. I'm going to have to say thanks for everything. Jonathan Liew, Miguel Delaney, that was Back Pages tonight.